This conference will now be recorded.
Hi guys, it's Kimberly Bell with the Real Estate Office, bringing you some more education on Transaction Desk. Today we're going to talk about Transaction Desk and how to use it when you are creating a seller's transaction. So we're going to go ahead and get started. As I'm teaching, I'm trying to stay consistent. So we're staying consistent by going ahead and starting in Flex MLS. So usually by the time you have a seller, you have done a CMA, you have their contact information, and you have a CRS tax information about the house. If you've done a CMA, you've probably been to the house, and you probably do at least have one front photo. So to get started, you would want to make sure that you had downloaded those items, maybe the tax records. So if we click on the tax records in Flex MLS, it looks like this. One of my recent listings that may or may not have a transaction would be Beverly Drive. So here I have pulled up the tax information on 130 Beverly Drive. It is not listed. So creating a transaction before it is listed, before you actually sign anything, is usually when you start your transaction. You don't usually do a listing agreement and do all these things and pull it into the transaction. You start on this side of the transaction. So the CRS tax record, I'm going to save it as PDF. And again, because I'm on Richard's computer, I do have a new computer ordered though, so that it can be saved to mine. Let's see where we saved this. Okay, we haven't yet. We are going to save it. Look at COVID-19 information. Oh Lord, he is so organized. Let me tell you guys, the most organized man I have ever met. Unlike your broker, who's just really smart, he is very organized. I am not as organized as he is. I can put my hands on it though, so I guess that's all that matters. So here we have that. We've done the tax information and we know the information that we need to know. But you know, why would we need this? I think it's important that you use this information to go ahead and you're using this tax information to go ahead and use that wizard so that you have less documentation. Okay, so if I can toggle back and forth, I have it saved because I'm going to add that to my information right now in the very beginning. I have it saved, and I also have, sorry, I have a dog. Clover. I have it saved, and I also have it open on my screen as I'm going into Transaction Desk. So I know the information that I'm going to use. So you will see me go back and forth between what is on the screen and Transaction Desk. So here we are at Flex MLS. And I have Transaction Desk as one of my saved places at the top of my desk right here. I am going to hit Transaction Desk, and it's going to take me into Transaction Desk. Now understand what the difference is between the way we did it the other day is I was actually in a property. And at the top of the brief, I hit Transaction Desk. Okay. So your dashboard's going to look a little different than mine. I could probably go to a home screen to make mine look a little bit more like yours. Well, this is my view. This is what I would do. Maybe I need to go back so that you can see where I'm going with this. So one of your 4 boxes on your main screen, you should have maybe transactions, you would have forms, recent documents. Maybe those are all boxes that you have on your screen. After that, there is where it says recent transactions or transactions, you have a spot that says create transactions. It's a house with a plus. It's probably not going to be in the same place on this screen as yours is. Transaction. So I'm going to create a transaction. And then the wizard comes up. So we're right back where we were before, right? And we're going to name the transaction. The difference is that when you brought it over from representing a buyer, it automatically brought the property address over for you, and it did some things for you. We don't have an MLS ID for this. So we would do 130 Beverly Drive. Remember, we're going to toggle back and forth, and then I'm going to do the dash, and I'm going to put in seller. So we know that Kimberly represents the seller. The agent Kimberly represents the seller. So if you're doing yours, whoever you represent, that's where it's going to be. On mine, I'm not going to put, I would never probably put that it's JP Morgan out there, but I could. JP Morgan Chase is who this is. Just so you kind of know what's going on. So then right beneath that, we have a template. We would choose the 2020 listing packet. And we're going to add me as the listing agent. So I've done a few things here. I've done 130 Beverly Drive. I named it, which is mandatory. And if I hit create without choosing the template and without choosing what I am, it will not add you. Your information will not appear on any documents other than your name at the bottom of the document. But like at the bottom of the purchase and sales agreement or whatever you're doing, your information and your office information will not appear there. It's important that you choose yourself as a listing agent here so you don't have to add yourself later. And I'm choosing a template, a 2020 listing packet. That's going to create forms to be imported into your wizard so that you don't have to go hunt and peck which forms you need. Now, of course, you can always rely on your trusty checklist. Your trusty checklist will appear in your document section if you don't have a copy of it readily available. So that's, of course, for our office and for educational purposes. So you're going to hit create. So that's this button right here. And I want to make sure that this box is checked, that I'm using the wizard. So there's a box, use the wizard. Hitting create. So the difference is that when we bring it in from an MLS, there's some things that are already set up for you, but on a seller, it usually isn't. It's a lot more manual data entry. And so you're going to have to do some data entry. We are going to say that this is a residential listing. So what sort of transaction is it? We're doing a residential listing. And we're going to put in some information. And the reason that I left the CRS data record up is because that's where I'm going to pull this information from. Beverly Drive. We have no MLS. We have no unit. We do know that it is in Petros. That is in Morgan County. It's in Tennessee. And the zip code is not there. So I can go back over here. You're just going to have to give me a minute here because it does have a prior listing, but it's a different than this. Beverly, it's 37845. And the property type is vacant land. The prior listing showed that it was that it had a house on it. It doesn't have a house on it anymore. So we're doing vacant land. We're coming down and we have a tax number. We're getting that off the CRS tax information. And it's right here. So general parcel information. Like this. So we're left clicking, highlighting it, right clicking, that drop down box will come and we will copy. We're going to insert that there, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to left click to get the cursor in the box. We're going to right click and we're going to select paste. You can also use that as the legal description if you don't have a legal description. You could say that it's the PIN and paste that number there. So you'd want to do that at the same time. We go back over to the CRS and we want maybe a lot block page number deed book. Let's see what we get. We have a sales history on a warranty deed. We want the instrument, the warranty deed, and it is book 233 and page number 223. You see that? You could also go, there's another site out there that you could get some information for free. If you're logged into your own CRS, you could click it, purchase this particular deed, and get a description there. If you go to the county records though, you should be able to get that for free. So 233, we're gonna come back over here. We are deed book 233 and page number 223. Putting that in there. Let's see if we have a lot and block number. We usually don't because this is a large piece of land. The lot and the block number are going to, they usually appear up here. See this? There's a track and a block. You see that? Track and block. See if it coincides at all. No, just block and lot. But you could probably do this. This would be good if you did track and block 1104 and 1. So you're on block. You could do this. Track 1104. Block 1. Right? Isn't that what that says? BLK. BL. Okay. So it's identified. Now, usually by this point, you don't have a listing price, but remember that when we go to list the property, there's two ways to insert the listing price to have it populate. You can type it into the form, and that will be the only time it appears. It will not save it. If you come back, it will not be there unless you type it directly into the form. It's not going to populate that onto other forms. So to get back to right here to this step, you would come back over here to details. On the sideboard right here, you would come back over to details. That's how you get back to this page to be able to do that. Okay. Now, if your person has a mortgage and you want to do a net sheet, we've talked a little bit about net sheets in the past. There is a net sheet that you could attach to this that would calculate some of your proceeds for you. And the way that you could do that is you would put the balance of the first mortgage here, a second mortgage, or any other liens or encumbrances. Now the property includes, you would put this here. You would say maybe land only, maybe on mine, I would want to put as is with all debris because there is a foundation there. And some burnt decks because the house burned down. Property excludes, none. Leased items, of course, none disclosed. So we're down at the bottom. And remember that we want to click next, not save and exit. Of course, if we hit save and exit, we can get back in. We talked about that last time. So we're going to hit next. I wish that all of that was at the bottom together. I do wish that. So here's where we can put our listing date. Sometimes we know our listing date, sometimes we don't. So we're going to pretend that the listing date is April the 10th. And we're going to pretend that it expires July the 10th, that they're doing a 3-month listing. And this is all for buyer's information, right? So we're done on that page. We're going to hit next. So we have contact information. Here's the listing agent and the listing broker. But I need to add a contact. So right here is my add button. And this looks the same whether I'm over here in contacts or whether I'm here in Wizard, which is step 3 of 5. They're the same thing. So I'm clicking add and create a transaction contact. Now, one of the things that we know is that I want my seller's name to appear beneath the line. Okay. My seller, so I'm going to do a seller. First name is J.P. Morgan, and their last name is Chase, N.A. And they don't have an email address, and an email address is not required because, of course, on mine, but you would want an email address to appear here. You would want the legal name to appear here so that you can go ahead and use Authentisign when it's appropriate. Oops, I forgot the word bank. Looks like that. Now I don't have to retype this. If that's their preferred signature, I can also copy it and paste it. If I really wanted to get fancy, go back over here to this and look up JP Morgan Chase Bank's address and copy it. Oh, it didn't work for me very well here. And that zip code is 43219. And that's what that's going to look like. If it's the same as the property address and you want that to appear as the seller's contact address, you could click that here. You could put their phone number and their fax there. And then when you go to sign your listing agreement, it asks for your seller's contact information. There you go. It's already there, so you don't have to type it all in. And then you would hit, you can toggle back. Here's the address. Here's general. Here's the address. Here's general. You can hit save at any moment. So JP Morgan Chase Bank NA appears there. They do not have an email address, but guess what? I now have their name how I want it to appear. It's just not appearing from the tax records. You know, it's just not appearing on a whim from somewhere else. I'm actually creating it the way that I want it to appear. Maybe maybe your seller doesn't want to be disclosed as to who they are, and they've put that in writing to you. The only time you can use owner of record, property owner of record, is when you have it in writing that they want you to use property owner of record. Sometimes that is because like on a We Buy Houses for Cash, the current owner is not the person that's actually selling it, but they've given them permission to sell it. And so it'll be a double transaction. So they use owner of record or assignee. So they use it there. Sometimes banks, like Bank of America has many entities. They're also the money source. They have lots of names. And so maybe they've taken title in the money source, but the true owner is Bank of America. And so they want you to use POR, which is property owner of record, but they put it in writing to you. The only time you can use a default of POR is if you actually have that in writing. So we've done contacts, and the way that you would do that is you would do it right here. And where it says seller and it says name, you would put POR, excuse me. Okay, click next. So on this particular one, we have all kinds of residential stuff here. So I'm gonna have, because this is a true, it is a true transaction. We probably need to clean this up a little bit. I definitely don't need buyer's representation agreement for this one. So I'm deleting it. I do need an exclusive rights to sell listing agreement designated agency, but I need it for land because this particular one is land. But this is a great upload that's here, so that's good. You would need, you know, a property condition disclosure if what? It was a regular listing. If it's somebody that, if you're doing a rental or you're doing a bankruptcy or you're doing a sometimes you don't know the owner. If you're doing a trust, if you're as a trustee, then you could use this form right here. That's the exemption notification. A lot of times in REOs, we're using the 203. More often than not, the 203, which is the Tennessee Property Condition Exemption Notification, they're asking it to be accompanied with the 205. Which is a disclosure, an additional disclosure. On 204, that's the disclaimer. We say that we use 204 on every single one of ours. The buyer should have one and the seller should have one. If there's a subsewage disposal, if back over here, let's go to the CRS. We scroll down on the CRS. Towards the bottom, and it says property characteristics utilities. It'll tell you it has a gas source, that has electric source is public, but the water and the sewer are both individual. Individual meaning that it's a well, and the sewer meaning that it's septic. So when we're back over here, and we look at the subsewage disposal system and permit disclosure, that is something that we need filled out. And you fill it out and then you email it or fax it to the health department area. If you need help with that, Kimberly Crowder, the manager of the Oak Ridge office, can help you determine which particular person at the health department that needs to go to. We have one in this area that covers a lot of the different counties, but not all of them. So there's multiple contacts there. And she has all that. It's actually in the front of our book that has all of our forms in it. There's a contact sheet with the emails and the phone numbers of all of those health department supervisors that tell you about this. Lead-based paint. For this one, I don't need lead-based paint, but on a normal one, you would, because you would need it to be able to, if it's built before 1978, that would be one that you would want to disclose. We're doing land only. Working with a real estate professional, only if they're not. Here's what I like about this form. Let's talk about this form for just a minute. 301, I'm going to pull it up for you. I was about to delete it, but let's pull it up. I like that it pulls out part of our contract. I don't think it actually is in our contract anymore, but it tells you exactly what our job is. Okay. And then if you're a designated agency, you have these additional duties. Tells you what your job is. And then it tells you if I am a designated agent for the seller on line 57 through 61, how I am defined. That the individual licensee has been assigned by his or her managing broker and is working as an agent for the seller or the property owner in the consumer's prospective transaction to the exclusion of all other licensees in this company. So what that means is the whole company isn't working for JP Morgan Chase. Just Kimberly Bell, the agent, is working for JP Morgan Chase. So with that being said, if another client came along, a buyer, that someone within the company could represent the buyer. That's what designated agency means. Even if someone else in the licensee's company represents a possible buyer for the seller's property, the designated agency for the seller will continue to work as an advocate for the best interest of the seller of the property owner. An agency relationship of this type cannot, by law, be established without written agency agreement. So we come down here and we're like, okay, so what is this? They've decided that on this particular one, if you want to be able to define what you're doing, what your job is, and who you're doing it for, you could use this particular form. Before, they had it to where it was only for the unrepresented buyer, unrepresented party, whether they were a buyer or a seller. For example, if it was a for sale by owner, they had the for sale by owner click that they were unrepresented, and they would use the unrepresented party would sign this. Now they've made it to where they could say they are an unrepresented seller versus an unrepresented party, and then they have you sign it as well, so that they know that you have shared this information with them. It's kind of a cool form. I like it a lot. I usually use it with first-time home buyers because they have not a clue as to what agency means. And I usually send it to first-time home buyers when I first start working with them so that they understand what it means. So working with a real estate professional for this particular one, I am deleting that file. But right beneath that, confirmation of agency needed on every single transaction, even if you're representing yourself. Disclaimer notice needed on every single transaction. I am not representing myself, so I'm deleting the consent. And I might need the amendment to the listing agreement. We know that we're not doing short sale. They have way too many forms in here. We're going to have to simplify this up. I have to change this up after this conference. Request for information for this Tennessee confirmation. So you could use that if you need to. This would be requesting it from the health department. It looks like this. I probably do need this. See how it went ahead and gave me some information here? I don't know why the real estate firm and address didn't come in. And it's saying, hey, we're requesting information and I need you to let me know if a file is available about the sewer. Oh, do that. We're going to keep that. So we're going back down to the bottom a little bit, and we might need a water supply and waste disposal notification. If you're using land and you truly know what it is, you would use that. If you have a condo association information, man, I wish Sonia was here. We were just dealing with this, just dealing with HOA information and condominium information. So there is a form for this, 709. So I kind of got my forms down. Here's something cool. I can take them and I can group them. Okay. So if I was going to use certain ones, like agency is super important, I'm going to use it. I'm going to bring it up here. Because it is land, I don't need my exemption. We're using this disclaimer down here. And we're not using these this time. But you can. Don't think you can't. So we're going to have a lot less. Okay. So for understanding purposes, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to add a form. We're going to add land. Exclusive rights to sell listing agreement designated agency land lot is RF 131. We're going to add it. Now, I have created everything at this point, added and subtracted my forms that I think I need. So for right now, for the purposes of Wizards, we're just going to click next. We're not editing right now. All we're doing right now is setting the forms in place. So we're hitting next. Here is that residential checklist that I was referring to. You can open it and download it and do a screen share if you decide that you want to use this checklist right this minute. So the checklist looks like this. Listing agreement, confirmation of agency, property conditions, CRS, MLS, disclaimer notice, lead-based paint, and additional required property disclosures, water supply notification, impact fee, the sewage permit disclosure. These are things we need. So they're there if you need them. We know that we want to add to this because I already have documents here. I might as well go ahead and add them. We have a download. Hang on a minute. So we have that download from today for Beverly Drive. And so I've added that CRS property report there. It's already done. Should be done at the very beginning. You already have it. You've already shared it. There is no reason why you wouldn't go ahead and put that there. If you're requesting septic stuff, once you request it, it can go here. You can go ahead and put it here. It's a file for you. We're gonna hit done. And now we have a dashboard. We have a dashboard that says we have forms and we have a dashboard. So if your seller, so if you're dealing with an attorney on a bankruptcy and they have a separate listing agreement, then you would only need your additional forms to help back you up. You would need, your disclaimer notice, your confirmation of agency, those sort of forms. But in a regular listing, you would click Go to Forms. I'm going to look at both listing agreements. Okay. So this is a listing agreement. Say that it wasn't just land. This is the listing agreement we would use. We are a designated agency office. So each listing agreement needs to say designated agency. But I want to point out to you, look at how complete that is. Yes, I took a long time prepping through Wizard, but to take a half hour probably would have taken me 20 minutes if I wasn't reviewing each individual thing with you. Probably would have taken me 20 minutes, and I do not have to type each individual form. It does it for me. Every line's done. Now, I always think of Wizard as taking more time. I really do. But every time I use it, I surprise myself at how quick and easy my file comes together and how complete. So I'm really pleased with the way this looks. And I come down and I look at this. And then of course, because my client has not disclosed what the listing price is, I could either fill this in here. We're going to list it at 45,000. Or I could go back into Wizard and correct it there. And we're going to say that we have a carryover clause of 180 days. Now remember, this is this is not a land one, this is a regular exclusive right to sell listing agreement designated agency. We're pretending there's a house on this. This is what it would look like. Possession of property to be delivered at. I typically use at closing or agreed upon. Terms of sale, if it had a house, we could use all of these. FHA, EA, conventional cash. Now, compensation based on the total sales price. We do not do net sales price, so we do not deduct closing costs to come up with this number. It needs to be based upon the total sales price per our MLS, unless you agree upon it in advance. When the way that you would agree upon it is in advance would be with a compensation agreement. Seller shall be paid by the seller's broker available funds. So compensation is the total. So if it's land, you're doing 10%. If it's just a house listing, you're doing 6%. So then the next paragraph talks about rentals. If you decide that you're going to lease it, what do you get paid? And you would probably want to put something in there. Maybe if it gets rented, you want it to be $12.50. I'm not quite certain. Just put a number in there. Maybe it's a flat fee like that. Responsibilities and rights. Maybe you're going to manage it. Rights of all parties. Okay, so you got cooperating compensation to any agent who is a member of the participating MLS in which the property is listed in the amount of. What are you paying somebody else? That's what this says. Line 92, what are you paying somebody else? So if we're doing 6%, there's a house on it, it's usually 60-40. You're doing 2.4 for our office for educational purposes. We're doing 2.4. Usually the seller has to advertise more, seller's agent has to advertise more. Now, an agent who is not on line 96, an agent who is not a member of a participating in RMLS in which the property is listed, they will get an amount of. So I go to Nashville and I want to sell a house in Nashville. I am not a member of the Greater Nashville Area Association of Realtors. You can set this on the front end. So if somebody from Nashville comes here, okay, if Brian Copeland decides, because he's Clinton, he decides that he's going to sell in our area because his mom wants to buy a house, you know, what are we going to offer him? So is he showing the property? So I tend to give them 2 to 2.4. They're doing the same work, or so you hope so. But to offer them the same amount of money, they need to be doing the same amount of work. You need to be very clear with that on the front end of things. So we come down through, make sure that our listing agreement looks good. There's my name appearing there. We're not doing a home protection plan, so we're waiving that. And everything looks really good. So good job, team. You know, we decide whether we want to go ahead and add my name here. You can do that. And then we save it. Okay. Now you would group your stuff, make sure that your confirmation of agency looks right. You're going to look at your confirmation of agency. It's already there. On our old ones, it used to automatically check it. I don't think this one does. Designated agent. Looks fabulous. So because we completed it all in Wizard, a lot of what we're doing is already there. Say disclosure, we know that there's nothing there that it'll automatically have to be put in. So if these are the only, say that you needed, here's a cool thing, and I'm not sure how to do it. I'm going to get back to you on it. I'm going to do a different class on that, on how to let your people fill in the residential property condition disclosure digitally. So I'll get back to you on that one. But say that we wanted, now that we have everything and we want to send them for, maybe we just want to stop here because we don't know the listing price, right? So you're sitting with your client and you're at a listing appointment and they're ready to sign, and you've brought up your computer and it looks like this. And they say, okay, we want it to be 45,000. So you're going to click in that listing, or you're going to come back over here to details. And in details, you can come down. Hang on a minute. Here it is. List price. You could put that 45,000 there, and then it'll automatically populate for you because you've already done everything else to your forms. If you put that there and you use your handy dandy check mark right here to save your changes, it'll now populate that to where you don't even have to go back into that form. So now we've done that, and Mr. and Mrs. Seller say, okay, we're ready to sign. You're like, is it okay if you sign digitally? And they say, sure. And you say, okay, here we go, boys and girls. And you're gonna go like this, and you're gonna click everything you want them to sign. Okay, so all those forms are there, everything that you want them to sign. We're gonna go to the basket. So we're not doing 5 emails to them. We're not doing all of that. But if they don't want to sign digitally, you can click on everything that you want before you leave the office to go to them. And you could click print right here. You could print those documents to take to them. Okay, you don't have to print them individually is what I'm saying. You can put them all together and print them as a group. So all 3 forms being printed together. Or I can send it to Authentisign and do it that way. Or say you have everything filled in except for the price. You know that they're not going to digitally sign. Or say you want them to digitally sign and you want to leave them with a hard copy, which makes no sense. But if you decided you wanted to do that, you could print it right here. And you could do the signatures in Authentisign. Okay. So you're going to do a print, you're going to do signatures in Authentisign. We've grouped them together. We've put them in there. We're coming in and we're looking at the participants. And I'm going to sign. And I'm going to put JP Morgan Chase in, and it's going to get mad at me because JP Morgan Chase doesn't have a email address. You see this hand? That means there's something wrong. You either don't have an email address or the email is not verifiable. It clicks it out to see if there is actually a true email on the other side or if you have screwed it up somehow. And if you've screwed it up, this pretty little red hand will appear. We're gonna come down here to documents. See, it's mad at me saying, no, you can't do that. So let's put in let's fix it. It's saying, hey, you can't move forward. So we're gonna go ahead and just put, that's not really what I wanted, hang on. Is it gonna let me do it? Won't let me go back in. So here I am, I've screwed it up. And so I need to clear the form because I screwed it up, right? You saw me screw it up. Save it. Both custom signatures. See, it doesn't even like me. Save participant. That's what it looks like. So now we're down here. We're looking and making sure that these are the forms that we want and that all forms are correct. Of course, if it was a regular listing, we would have more documents. And we'd have the correct form. Here's where we're at, though. Everything's ready. Everything's filled out. It looks good. We're making sure that JP Morgan Chase and myself have that. Remember, you can do the year and the date stamp. And the year and the timestamp. And again, for that, you can do it there. Come down here, the same thing. Looks good. We always know that the the disclaimer never has, it never pre-populates because it doesn't know which client you're using. So we have to drag it from over here. You have to put JP Morgan Chase in this corner. This says signer. You hit drag and drop and the boxes appear. That's how you would do that. Anytime that it doesn't know where to put a signature, you put the signer up in the right-hand corner. There's a drop down. It looks like this. Have it highlight whichever signer you're wanting. Hit drag and drop. And then click sign here, and you can move the box there. Now, the next thing that we would do is we would hit next. We would hit send invitation. So Mandy is going to sign for me if she's listening. And I am going to sign for the bank just for purposes of you being able to see, for educational purposes. This is not a real signing. For you to be able to see, what does your seller see? It's important for you to know what your seller sees. So what does your seller see? Hopefully not this white box that's on my screen. There it goes. Okay. There's a lot going on here on my email. This is my morning routine. I've already actually checked my email and have received 30 such emails since I started this this video. Oh, goodness gracious. I want to be able to show you this. It's the last little part. Here it is. So they're going to get an invitation that looks like this. Authentic sign invitation to review and sign documents for 130 Beverly Drive. So some notes to yourself as to what I think about how this presents. You need to be certain that you're talking to your seller or your buyer that it automatically jumps to their first signature. I would never want them to sign a document without reading it. So of course, when it jumps to that first signature, always encourage your buyer or your seller to scroll back up through the document, especially if you're not in their presence. Because a lot of times we can read documents to them and go over documents with them, but we want to make sure that they're reading it for themselves so that they understand it. So it's super important for them to understand that just because it goes to the first place for you to sign doesn't mean that you don't have the right to read it. It gives you the option to scroll back up. So here I am the seller, JP Morgan Chase Bank. I am accepting my signature. And here is the document. This is how it is presented to the seller. Looks just like this. I'm going to hit start. And boom, do you see how it took me to the very bottom? I'm not in love with that at all. I want you to know that. So what I'm going to do is I am going to scroll back up because I am the seller and I want to read it. So they can scroll back up here on the side and they can read this document. Okay. And they can read it and make sure that it says what they need it to say. Then when they're done reading it, they can even come to options. They can view it differently. They can print it and download it. See that right there? Super important. They can print it and download it under options, so that they have a copy, a hard copy, if they feel like they need a paper copy. So I'm going to hit the signature button. It's going to take me to the next signature. I would need to scroll up and read that too. And Mandy, you're doing such a great job. So Mandy's on the other side of this. She does some of the transaction coordination at the Knoxville office. And I said, hey, and Mandy's going to be me. And if you guys will look on the screen right there, Mandy went in, she received that email, and she signed these documents for us while we were sitting here. So good job, Mandy. So I'm going to go ahead and sign, but you need to make sure that you know that your sellers can go ahead and review and sign and what their options are. Don't just make them sign them. There's an option button. Let them download them, review them with them, go over them over the phone. If they need you to, do a share screen with them. You know, do something that'll allow you to help them understand what they're doing. But there is a big deal at the end. You can't just hit complete. You have to hit complete signing. Not just complete. You have to hit complete signing, or it won't complete the signing. Do I want to add a password? No, thank you. Now, I am sitting on the other side of this. And I'm waiting patiently, and I'm hitting reload, 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 reload. I want it to finish. I want it to finish. So it still says that there's an action waiting. You see that lightning bolt? So let's see who we're waiting on. Maybe Mandy didn't do it, or I didn't do it, but look, it says it's done. So it was authenticated and it was signed. So sometimes it'll be authenticated and you'll still have a gear sitting here on the sign, and that's because they hit complete, but they didn't hit complete signing. So now I can do one of two things to access my signing. This could be where some confusion gets done. I could go right here to the signing and email. This is not it. Go to final document and download. I could go to final document and download. If I click final document, it'll take me there. Okay. But I need to go back to the transaction. So I'm going back into my transaction. Another cute little note, I could have added a photo. Do you see this right here? I represent the seller, but wouldn't it be great to have a photo? Yeah, so I could have added a photo there. So here I am, and now that I have had my forms signed, they now become documents. Anything that has a lock beside it means that it has been authenticated and signed. The certificate is the proof of where it was signed. If anybody ever said, what email was that sent to and who signed it, you could give them a certificate of proof. So now that we're under contract, the title company needs a copy. So I am clicking on all of these items, and I'm going into my basket, and I am sending them via email to maybe Pam. We're going to send them to Kimberly Crowder because Kimberly needed a copy, because I have a copy of Earnest Money. We needed her to see that. So we're going to send it to BRS Money 1. And we're going to say that it's this transaction. And we're going to say for your file. Maybe Kimberly is the title company. Maybe Kimberly is the lender. All of those people may be needing a copy. I am going to send it as an attachment. I don't really like sending it as a link. That's just my preference. And I'm going to hit send. So I've sent her that. And that came from documents. You can also access Transaction Desk on your phone, and you can do all of this on your phone. So this is user friendly on your phone, and you would just go ahead and click on those and email them where they need to go. As you get things that may be ink signed, you would upload them into documents. You would click add, and you would add all of your documents here that have been ink signed. Okay, when you're done with, say that all of this, you had both sides. All of this is signed, and say that you need to make a listing file. Your listing file. You would put them all together and merge them. And you would come here, you would merge them into one document, and you would say 130 Beverly Drive listing documents. You would take right here, because it is the listing documents, you would put an asterisk to make it appear first. You'd hit merge. So then when we want to review them, they appear first, and that's how you get a paycheck. Remember, we have 3 documents that appear there. Your listing documents, your buying documents, your closing documents. That they all appear with asterisks at the top before we close a file. You can go back into any of your old files that you've had a closing with, and you can look and see how it presents itself so that you can do that. All right, ladies, what questions do you have? Anything? I tried to make a promise to keep this about an hour today to myself. I'm a little over, but not too bad. So if you have questions, feel free to email me. This will be available via video for you to review at your convenience. And it's Friday. I won't see you again until Tuesday for our April meeting, announcing our listing and selling agents for the month of March. And I look forward to seeing you. Talk to you all soon.